Okay, today we're talking about inequalities. Specifically, we are writing inequalities from word problems or real-world situations. I think this is exciting because we don't have to solve inequalities in 8th grade. So we're just writing them, and that's exactly what we did yesterday, but we just have to identify a few more key phrases. So in your binder, this is page 30F, 30 on the front. This symbol, just as a reminder, is less than. This symbol is less than or equal to. You might also see a phrase that says at most. People get this confused because at most makes you think of more, which makes you think greater, so then you pick this symbol usually. Think about if I give you at most 10 minutes of free time, then your free time can be 9 minutes, it can be 8 minutes, it could be exactly 10 minutes, so the equal sign, right? It just couldn't be 11 minutes. Your free time has to be bigger than the time. The free time I've given you is bigger or exactly the same as the 10 minutes. So what you take is less than or exactly the same, so at most the 10 minutes that I gave you. I hope that makes sense. If that confused you, please send me a message, drop a comment, and I will get back to you as soon as possible with hopefully a better way to explain that. Greater than or equal to is the greater than sign and half of an equal sign. Another way you might see that is at least. Again, people usually get this confused because they think least means less, so you pick this one. But that's incorrect. If you go to Walmart and you're going to buy a game that costs $20, okay, you need at least $20 to buy it, which means you could have $21, you could have $24, you could have exactly $20 and get the game, assuming that there's no taxes involved. But you couldn't walk in with $19. So what you bring in has to be bigger than or the same as that $20 if the game costs at least $20. If those examples confused you more than they helped you, please let me know, and I will think of a better way to explain those to you. The last symbol I wanted to remind you of was the greater than symbol. And of course, we've been working with the equal sign, and we know that we can look at that with the word is. You might see equals or same. Okay. Let's look at the first example. The first example says, if I pay a one-time fee of $30, you can buy tickets for a music concert at a reduced price of $17. Regular tickets cost $25. Determine the number of reduced price concert tickets that you would need to purchase in order for the total cost to be less expensive than the same number of regular tickets. Select which inequality represents this problem. Okay, so when we were writing equations, the first thing we had to do was pick out what our variable was and what two sides we're comparing, because we always have a left expression and the right expression. So to do that, you have to read the goal or the question, whatever it is you're trying to do. This says to determine the number of reduced price concert tickets. So our variable, that's the unknown thing, is the number of tickets. So our variable is the number of tickets. We usually pick X. It looks like in our answer choices they're using T's, just for consistency. I'm going to change mine to a T. Okay. You would need to purchase an order for the total cost to be less expensive than the same number of regular tickets. So I want to know how many reduced price tickets I need to have something less expensive than that same number of regular tickets. So I'm comparing, it looks like, reduced price tickets, and I'm comparing a regular price ticket. And I need the reduced stuff, the reduced tickets, to be less than less expensive than the regular tickets. So the question tells us the variable, what we're comparing, and if it's equal or an inequality. If it's an inequality, it will also tell you what kind of inequality to use. So you get a lot of information from just the question alone. After you've read the question and determined the variable, the two sides of your expression, of your inequality or equation, and the symbol that you have to use to compare, then you can go back and actually write the inequality or equation. Today we're writing inequalities. So let's look at what we need for reduced prices. I pay a one-time fee of $30. 30 is important, and one-time fee is important. Then I can buy tickets for a music concert at a reduced rate of $17. So it looks like all of my tickets after that is going to be $17. That means every single ticket is $17. Every is one of those words that tells us to multiply 17 and the number of tickets. The number of tickets happens to be our variable t. So I know that the price of all my tickets combined is 17 times t. So when I'm buying with reduced tickets, I have the one-time fee of $30. But after that, all of my tickets are way cheaper. 17 times t. 17 times the number of tickets. This is less than, of course, whatever I have for the regular tickets. My regular tickets are $25. That's $25 for every single ticket. So again, I'm taking that cost and multiplying it by the number of tickets. That cost is 25. The number of tickets is t. Notice that 25t is on the greater than side of the inequality. So 25t has to be on the greater than side of the inequality. C has 25t on the less than side of the inequality. B also has 25t on the less than side of the inequality. But A and D have 25t on the greater than side of the inequality. That's the open end of the inequality sign. The reduced tickets are on the less than side of the inequality, the smaller end of that. So the reduced price has to be on the smaller end. And in both A and D, that is true. These are the correct expressions because we can write 30 plus 17t. If you split up your terms, this is a plus 30. And then you can rewrite it 17t plus 30t. And you don't have to write the positive sign. So this is the same. So A and D are both correct. And I did that so that you can see you can write the same inequality two different ways. So you can have exactly how we had it. Reduced is less than regular. You could also say regular is bigger than reduced, which is what they did in letter D. So your correct answers are A and D here. On Schoology, you just have to pick one of the correct answers, but there might be two correct answers in your answer choices. So make sure that you are working these out all the way. Let's look at number 2. There's something leaking on my desk. Somebody got me sonic drink earlier and that's all over my desk and I don't want to get the paper wet. Number 2. The cost for a large cheese pizza at Pizza Palace is $10 plus $1.25 for each additional topping. The cost for a large pizza at Luigi's Pizzeria is $8 plus $1.75 for each additional topping. And I should circle those numbers. For what number of toppings is Luigi's Pizzeria less expensive than Pizza Palace? Select which inequality represents this problem. Okay, so my question is, for what number of toppings is Luigi's less expensive than Pizza Palace? The variable is the thing that we don't know. The thing that we don't know is the number of toppings. We usually pick X. It looks like our problem is using T's. just for consistency, I'm going to also use a T. Okay, and that represents the number of toppings. Okay, I'm comparing a place called Luigi's and a pizza place called Pizza Palace. And the comparison I want is for Luigi's to be smaller than, less expensive than Pizza Palace. Luigi's has to be less expensive than Pizza Palace. The other way you could write that is for Pizza Palace to be bigger than Luigi's. I think we're ready to go and read the story problem now. If I was looking at Luigi's, because in this inequality, the first inequality I wrote, these are the same thing, but in the first inequality I wrote Luigi's came first. So when I go to look at Luigi's, that's the second sentence. At Luigi's, a pizza is $8 plus $1.75 for each, tells us to multiply additional topping. The number of toppings is T, so I have 1.75 times T. And that was added to 8. Now I'm going to write the inequality symbols. Let's look at Pizza Palace. Now this is the first sentence, Pizza Palace. The pizza at Pizza Palace is $10 plus $1.25 for each, which tells us to multiply additional topping. The number of toppings is T, so we multiply $1.25 and T. So we have $10 plus our $1.25 for each additional topping. So there are two ways that we can write this exact same inequality. We can write it like this, or we could write it like this. Notice that in both of these, 10 plus 1.25t is on the greater than side of the inequality. So when I look at my 10.1.25t's, I want them to be on the greater than side. This is on the less than side, so my answer cannot be D. 10 plus 1.25t, this one is on the greater than side, which is what we want. So we could have C still. Option B, 10 plus 1.25t is on the greater than side of the inequality. That's what we want, so this one's okay. And in letter A, we are on the smaller side of the inequality. So we cannot have letter choice A. Lights timed out, sorry. Okay. Luigi's is on the smaller side of the equation, so anything with Luigi's needs to be on this, sorry, not equation, inequality. So B and C are both correct, they're just written different ways, and that's okay. Because we can write inequalities two different ways. Looking at number 3 now. Number 3 says, after a hurricane, the Johnsons had 6 inches of water in their basement that was being pumped out at a rate of 1 inch per hour. The Grahams had 10 inches of water in their basement being pumped out at a rate of 2 inches per hour. Determine the number of hours it will take for the water level in the Grahams' basement to be equal or less than the Johnsons'. So in this problem, we are asked to find the number of hours for the Grahams to be equal or less than the Johnsons. The thing that we don't know is the number of hours, and it looks like they're using the variable W. So W will tell us how many hours. We're comparing the Grahams and the Johnsons. And the specific comparison that we want is equal or less than. Equal or Grahams is less than Johnsons. The other way we can write this inequality is for the Johnsons to be greater than or equal to the Grahams. Let's start reading our story problem. After a hurricane, the Johnsons, so first we're introduced to the Johnsons. They had 6 inches of water. And this is being pumped out at a rate of 1 inch per hour. So they start with 6, and they're getting rid of the water pumped out. If you have water in your basement, pretend this is your basement, and there's 6 inches of water here. After we're pumping water out, that water level goes down. It gets less and less closer to the floor. Since this is getting smaller, then we're subtracting that 1 inch every hour. I'd like to point out that hours is represented by W, and per means to multiply. So 1 inch per hour is really 1 times W, which is really just W, because the 1 can be invisible. Okay, and I'm going to write the inequality symbols. And let's look at the next part of this problem. The Grahams, now we're introduced to the Grahams. They had 10 inches of water in their basement. And it's being pumped out, so again, we're getting smaller in this basement, but they're pumping their water out at a rate of 2 inches per hour. So they start with 10, they're pumping water out, so minus 2 inches per hour. Per means to multiply, and hours is being represented by W, and we found that out by reading the question. So minus 2W then. Okay. After reading very carefully, you find that the options that match this are B and C. The correct answers are B and C here. There are more notes on the back of this page, so we'll flip this over. Just a couple more problems. And this is page 30, but on the back, so page 30B. Number 4 says, mountain climber A is at an altitude of 250 feet and is descending at a rate of 30 feet per hour. Mountain climber B is at an altitude of 400 feet and is descending at a rate of 50 feet per hour. In how many hours will the altitude of mountain climber B be lower than the altitude of mountain climber A? So we are wondering, our question, circle the important numbers first. Remember, we're using cubes. So circle the numbers, underline the question. So in how many hours will mountain climber B be lower than mountain climber A? The thing that we don't know is the number of hours, and it looks like they're using the letter F. So for consistency, we'll also use F, and this is how many hours. So F represents the number of hours. And we're comparing two mountain climbers, mountain climber B and mountain climber A. And we want mountain climber B to be lower, which means less than mountain climber A. The other way we can write B is less than A is by saying that A is bigger than B. All right, now we are ready to read our story problem because we have the variable and we have our inequality set up. So mountain climber A starts at 250 feet and is descending, which means to go smaller. So we're minusing 30 feet per hour. Per tells you to multiply, and hours is being represented by F. So this part really says 30 times F or 30F. So mountain climber A is 250 minus 30F. 250 minus 30F. I'm going to finish writing the symbols. Okay, and mountain climber B starts out at 400 and is descending, so smaller again, minus, at 50 feet per hour. 50 per tells us to multiply. Hours is being represented by the letter F. So this is 50 times F. So mountain climber B is 400 minus 50F. 400 minus 50F. When you look at the inequalities, you find that the inequalities that you can choose are correct, 400 minus 50F are B and C. And the last problem, the first 4 problems are actually a little harder than this because in number 5 you have some expressions already chosen for you for the left side, some expressions already chosen for you for the right side, and you just have to put them together. You just have to decide which one from each column is correct. I included this on our notes because we have a couple of problems that look just like this on our homework, and I wanted you guys to understand what the table was really trying to get you to do instead of getting confused about that. So let's read the problem. Susan has a balance of $110 in her school lunch account. She spends $6 per day for lunch. Her sister Evelyn has $83 in her lunch account, and she spends $4 per day for lunch. In how many days will Susan's lunch account balance be less than Evelyn's? So this is asking us in how many days will Susan be less than Evelyn. The thing we don't know is the number of days. Looks like our answer choices are using D for the variable, so D will tell us about the number of days. And we want Susan to be less, so less than Evelyn. Another way we can say that is Evelyn is bigger than Susan. Reading the story problem, they tell us about Susan first. She has 110. She spends $6 per day. Spends means that this $110 is getting smaller, so that's a minus. So we have 110 minus 6 per day, multiply keyword. Days is represented by the letter D, so minus 6D. So Susan's expression is 110 minus 6D. Looking at my answer choices, it looks like they have Susan on the left side of the inequality. That matches the way we write this one, not the way we match this, or we write this one, because in this inequality we have Susan on the right. So I'm going to stop writing that inequality. We want this to be less than whatever Evelyn has in her account. Evelyn has $83 in her lunch account. And she's spending, so again minus, $4 per day. Per tells you to multiply. D is the number of days, so 4D. So 83 minus 4D. So Susan was 110 minus 6D. What's wrong with this one is that there's a plus sign. What's wrong with the last two? D is attached to 110. D should be attached to 6 because we're talking about $6 per day, not $110 per day. If Susan's expression is on the left, then we have to use the less than symbol. This has a or equal to, and we're not using that. And this would only be right if Susan was on the right and Evelyn was on the left, so not this one either. On the right side, we have 83 minus 4D. Wrong with the first one is that they're adding 4D. And what's wrong with the last two is that D is attached to 83. You're not multiplying 83 in the number of days because you started with 83. If you have questions or concerns about this lesson, please feel free to message me on Schoology, send me an email, or drop a comment. I will get back to you as soon as possible. That concludes this lesson, though.